Welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us here another week. Later on in the show, I'm going to have a guest with me, Tim Roberts, who's an investment advisor here in town, but also a former professional hockey player. So we'll spend some time talking about the Penguins Stanley Cup Championship. But first, let's get to our usual features. We'll start off with a community champion this week. It's going to go to two individuals who are married and work closely together, and that's Chuck and Susie Miller, who for the last 10 years have put on the Run, Walk, and Roll 5K race to benefit the free wheelchair mission. And this is their 10th and final year that they're going to be doing this. And what a great time it has been over a decade where they've been able to raise funds to support people being able to receive wheelchairs that need them and otherwise could not afford them. This is certainly a good mission that they are on and that they've performed, and I want to congratulate them for that. My firm's been involved as a sponsor for several years now, and again this year we're going to do a matching donation for people that sign up to $1,500. So we're really excited about that. But congratulations to Chuck and Susie Miller. And that race is going to take place this year on Saturday, July 15th. It occurs, the starting line for that race is at Generations on National Road in Wheeling. So I encourage you all to take part in that event if you're able to do so. And again, you can run, you can walk, you can roll, you can do whatever you want to do in it, but it is a 5K race. So congratulations to Chuck and Susie and thank you for all the work you've done with that over the years. Next up, a quote of the week, and I spent some time in Pittsburgh because we have an office up there, and I was at a restaurant over in the Market Square the other day, and there was a place called CityWorks, and I went into the bathroom, and in the bathroom there was a little poster with a quote from Ernest Hemingway, so I thought I would use that one this week, and it was, "I drink to make other people more interesting." And I thought that was a pretty funny quote and one that is maybe sometimes true as well. And Ernest Hemingway, of course, a great author and some of the most famous books that maybe we read growing up, The Old Man and the Sea and others like that. But, I drink to make other people more interesting. And you do see that a lot when you're out and about. Sometimes people don't necessarily want to drink because they particularly want to drink, but they either want to A, have more fun, they think, or B, make the people around them more fun and more interesting because they don't necessarily want to be in the setting they're in, and they think maybe if they have a drink or two, that'll allow them to be more comfortable in the setting and maybe make it more, for lack of a better word, tolerable to talk to the people they're talking to or be around them. So I thought that was a great and maybe sometimes true quote from Ernest Hemingway. So there it is this week, a little bit out of the ordinary from my usual quotes, but that's an Ernest Hemingway quote. Legal tip this week. Maybe not so much a tip, but maybe just something that I've observed, which is people trying to get out of jury duty. The Seventh Amendment to our Constitution is an important one, just as important as our Second Amendment right to bear arms, our Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination, and all the other rights that we possess, the right to free speech under the First Amendment. There's a right to a jury trial under the Seventh Amendment. And the reason that that's so important and that our forefathers found that to be important is that we don't want things to be decided by, a king. We don't want things to be decided by a person who's a so-called expert or specialist. We want things to be decided by the people, by the ordinary citizens in our community to hear our disputes and decide who's right, who's wrong. We've determined that that's a civil way to determine which side of a dispute is correct. And you don't want, for example, if you were a person who had been harmed by a large corporation, you wouldn't want a CEO being the only person who was deciding whether you or that corporation was right or wrong because of their background of running a corporation themselves. You would want somebody that was like you. Just as the CEO would probably want to have a CEO on there. So when you get a jury, that's why you don't just have one person, you don't have two people on a jury, you get a mix of people on a jury that come from different walks of life, and there's a system in place where the lawyers can do what's called strike different jurors, and basically remove them because they don't think they necessarily be good for their side or whatever reason. There are also strikes for what are called cause, which means that the person has something in their background that makes it unfair for them to be on that jury. But also you can just strike people because it's your preference that they not be on there. You get so many of those in each case. But it's important, though, when called for jury duty to show up, be there, and want to serve if you're so chosen, because it's part of our civic duty. I mean, just like it is to elect our political officials, it's also our duty to serve on jury duty and to make sure that the people that are in our courts are getting a fair shake, that the people that are in their community are going to hear this, decide it based upon the facts, based upon the evidence and the law that the judge gives to you, and then these people can feel that whether they win or they lose, at least that they were heard and this was decided in a fair manner. if people start trying to get out of jury duty and the only ones remaining are those that really want it to be on there because they have some type of an agenda or whatever it may be, then that's not getting a fair shake for people. So it's an inconvenience for your life. There's no doubt. It's going to be an inconvenience of maybe a couple days. If the trial lasts a couple days, sometimes it can last a week or two. And it's certainly an inconvenience, but it's a small one in the grand scheme of making sure that we have a civil justice system that works for everyone. So if you do get called for jury duty, what probably will happen is you'll get a postcard or something in the mail telling you have to call in the night before to see whether you have to show up and report or whether the case is settled and you don't need to be there, things of that nature. But if you do get that postcard, make sure you show up, and when you're there, make sure that you go into it with an open mind of saying, yeah, I want to serve if I'm selected. I don't want to look for ways to get out of this. So that's just a tip here this week. We're going to need to take a break. When I come back, we'll be speaking with Tim Roberts. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Don't forget to do your homework.
All right, Mom. Trick or treat.
Here you go. Happy Halloween.
For your home, for your life, for more than 50 years. DeNoon Lumber.
Disasters happen. We take care of them all, from cleanup to reconstruction. Tell your insurance provider you prefer Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration, the official restoration company of the Mountaineers.
Welcome back to the show. Thanks for being with us here this week. It's my favorite time each week when I have a guest with me, and my guest this week is Tim Roberts, managing partner of McCoy Wealth Management here in town, and also former professional hockey player. So we'll talk Penguins a little bit since they've just come off of back-to-back Stanley Cups. But first, Tim, let's talk. First of all, thanks for being here on the show.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Jamie.
So McCoy Wealth Management, a lot of people may not even know what that is or what exactly you do there. So what's the business all about?
You know, we manage people's individual retirement plans, individual investments, and then for businesses and corporations, we also do their retirement plans, pensions, 401ks, college planning, all those investment needs that people need.
So pretty much if something to do with money, that's what we do.
For the most
part handle it.
Yep.
So people may wonder, how do I go about becoming a client, and do I have to have a certain amount of money to be a client of the firm? How's that work?
No, there's no minimums for what we do. And the good thing about a small town like Wheeling is there's a lot of good advisors here who work with the people who want to help. I mean, one of the things I was dealing with yesterday is your digital footprint and your security. I get an email at 6 in the morning and it basically said, hey, you in the office? And I said, yes. And he says, okay, I want you to send me a wire. I'll send you the information. Sounded fishy to me when I looked at this wire, so I called him there, West Coast. Turns out he had had his identity taken over in Turkey. Wow. And they were asking for me to send money to a third party. And that happens a lot with this older generation. They don't encrypt their emails. They don't encrypt their routers. They don't encrypt their bank accounts. They don't check their credit reports. And those are the things that people in this day and age, that's a necessary evil. You have to do that stuff because everything is, so much is online and you can find all the advice you want, but you want to talk to a real person. I mean, I'm not going to go get legal advice from LegalZoom. I'm going to come see you guys. I'm not going to, not see a CPA for my taxes. I'm not going to go and not know who my banker is. And it's same with your financial advisor. It's when everything's going good, it's great. When it goes bad, you want a real live person that you can talk to that has your back. So I think that's where we come into play in this day and age.
Now, what's the process like for somebody? They come to see a financial advisor such as yourself, and what do they need to know? What do they need to bring with them, and what kind of questions are you going to be asking them?
It's a little bit like going to the doctor. We can't guess where it hurts. You got to open up. It's a confidential, session, but we have a questionnaire of like, past taxes. What are your goals? Where are the holes? Do you have that rainy day fund? Are you putting away money in your 401k? You deal with a lot of young kids, and you try to tell them they need 6 months of salary saved up, because there's going to be changes in this life. You lose a job, it usually takes 3-4 months to find another job. So to just do the basic planning to get them there, and it may be years before they have enough money to buy an individual stock. You know, they should be funding their 401k first, because usually there's a match with a lot of these companies. They should be concerned about, you know, education. Do they have enough life insurance? Because if, you know, you got a house, you got a kid, something catastrophic happens, you want to be covered, even though you're not here anymore.
How's that work? You know, somebody wants to come in and meet with you and explore whether they want to, you know, hire you as their investment advisor. I mean, is there a charge for coming to meet with you?
Not the first time. Second time, there's no charge for it. You know, if the match fits, if we both feel that we can reach the same goals, then you start negotiating. You know, is there a fee for service or is it a transaction? You know, per transaction.
Okay. Now you mentioned businesses as well, in addition to individuals, that you do things for businesses. And what types of services do you provide for businesses?
Well, we have a benefits side, so we look at their health care, which in today's world, you know, is a big issue that's out there. So we'll analyze their benefits and see if we can find a cheaper way for them to do it. And then we're looking at their pension side, their 401k that they're doing, and what are the options for the participants right now.
People may wonder, you know, what type of business is appropriate to go to something like that. You know, is it for small businesses, large businesses? What, you know, what do you see there? You
know, it's for every business now. I mean, if you want to retain your employees, that's one of the things that you have to offer. You know, a pension plan for them, and you know, right now you're going to have to health care. You'll lose them to a competitor if you're not providing those services.
What are some of the biggest changes you've seen, speaking of healthcare, with the enactment of the Affordable Care Act a couple years ago, and the different changes that have come about?
You know, what you're seeing is the laws are, you know, is Trump going to repeal these? We don't know, or take them back. But it has made a lot more people aware that they're going to have to offer these things out there. And for the younger generation, you can't just go uninsured. I mean, now you can stay on your parents till you're 25, 26 years old. That's a nice loophole for kids coming out of college, because, you know, a lot of them are getting their first jobs later in life. The millennials are a different generation. They're much more patient than we were. So some of those things we've seen that it has really, the awareness level has jumped. People know that they need it and that they have to get it themselves. You just can't go uninsured anymore.
You know, on the healthcare side, you know, one of the things that people oftentimes wonder is, you know, do I need to, you know, is it going to be through my employer? Do I get it privately? And, you know, people are sometimes wondering, you know, what's the best route to go? And I think everybody just has to look on it a case-by-case basis and see what they can get and where it's best for them.
Yeah, it's definitely what your, you know, employer offers, and then where you can get it, you know, on the street or from the public open markets. And what type of coverage do you want? What deductible do you want? You know, what could be your exposure? You know, if you're carrying a high deductible of $5,000, well, if something happens, you better have the $5,000 to pay that deductible first, because, you know, that's coming out of your pocket.
Yeah. We need to take a break. When we come back, I'll continue speaking with Tim Roberts, but we'll talk a little bit of hockey, turn the tables here towards sports. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show. Welcome back to the show. Been talking with Tim Roberts, managing partner of McCoy Wealth Management here in town, but also former professional hockey player and still very involved in hockey through the local ranks here, Tim, and the coaching and things you do and organizing. But pretty exciting time here for hockey in the region, with the Penguins winning back-to-back Stanley Cups.
Yeah, it was a great victory. If you had told me at the beginning of the year, would they repeat, I would have said no, because you look at those teams that go to the finals, they're playing an extra third of the season. Just wear and tear on your body, and come back to repeat. Now you look at what's happening with them, and I think they have a better than 50% chance of going for a third.
And these guys played some hockey even outside the NHL the last offseason too, so it even added to it a little bit more. So
yeah, it was a long season when you throw the Olympics and the World Championships into it. It just grinds on. You look at, you're playing 110, 120 games. That's a long season.
By way of background, you were an 8th round pick by the Buffalo Sabres, back in the day, and then you played professional hockey, including here in Wheeling for the Wheeling Thunderbirds, and high-scoring guy for a defenseman, and got a lot of recognition. But then ended up staying here in town, and I got to imagine that growing up a hockey guy, that's of course the ultimate dream. The ultimate is to raise that Stanley Cup. So. What's it like for those guys, that are raising that cup, that have, looked forward to that their entire lives?
I think it's the ultimate moment for them. I mean, it's one of those things, you don't touch, if you're a hockey player, you don't touch the cup until you've earned the cup. I mean, and you can talk to any of the guys that I grew up playing that never touched it, they still wouldn't touch it. It's kind of a sacred moment. You only get on it, if you're part of that team, you get your name on that cup and it's there forever.
It's one of the kind of cool things about the Stanley Cup, how all the names are on there, a little bit different than other sports, that if you're on that team, your name's on there forever.
Yeah, now that, they have the 2 guys that travel with it all the time, because there's been so many incidents where, it ended up in the Hudson River, in pools, guys, just tortured it where they've had to rebuild it. So now they send a babysitter with that cup everywhere they go.
Everybody gets it for a day, right?
Everybody gets it for a day, including management.
Is that
Everybody
right?
gets it, yeah. So. I think there's probably 50 people that'll get their names on that cup.
Some guys that came through Wheeling, playing for what are now the Nailers, of course, on that team, Carter Rowney, Josh Archibald, Tom Kuhnackel. Of course, Rowney, had a big contribution in the finals. Kuhnackel didn't really get the time that maybe he had earlier in the playoffs and in the season, but some great just to be a part of that team. Yeah,
and you looked at it, and if you watched the end when they won it, all those guys were dressed. Well, Kuhnackel could barely stop because he had the knee injury.
Yeah.
You're looking at Letang with the neck surgery, and he's putting that cup over his head. I'm sure his doc's sitting there going, put the cup down.
Yeah.
But it's that moment where they still dress everybody. And the greatest moment there was when you saw Fleury take that cup over to Murray, because that was the passing of the torch, and now Fleury just waived his no movement clause. So you look at the Pens right now, they're going to free up probably $7 million in salary cap.
Yeah.
And all those young guys are on league minimums, so they're going to be able to sign a couple more guys next year.
One of the great things is, of course, they've got some of these guys signed long term too. Sidney Crosby, I think, through 2025. I think Malkin and maybe Letang might both be through 2021 or 22, something like that. I mean, so they've got some of the big names signed for a while to go here.
Yeah, you have your core, and you got Letang in there if he's healthy. And I think the great quote by Mario was that salary cap issues. When he was a player, he would have fought that tooth and nail. But when he became an owner, he's like, man, I can't compete with the New York Rangers in their market. So that salary cap allows every team to compete for the cup every year. You look at Nashville, they were 8th. That's the great thing about hockey. Basketball, we pretty much know who's going to be in it next year.
Yeah.
Hockey, you're not sure about that. You look at 2 runs by Ottawa and Nashville, which were 8 seeds coming out. I mean, the lowest to make it. And it's just you get on a roll, and you can get lucky.
That's one of the reasons I think, with the salary cap era and the parity that exists because of that, it's one of the remarkable things about being able to go back to back. I mean, it hadn't been done in nearly 20 years since the Detroit Red Wings did it, and to see a team be able to go back to back in an area where there's a lot of parity is pretty special.
Right, in Detroit, with that ownership that they had, but they also took a lot of discounts, and that's kind of the model that Pittsburgh is using. Like Crosby is playing way below market value right now because it's his city. And you got a bunch of other guys that, like, is Kunitz going to take, a 1-year deal to try to do 3? Is Hornquist going to take a 1-year deal? Does Cullen, who's, 19 years in the league, he's playing for $1 million? It sounds like a lot of money to us, but it's not a lot of money to a guy who's played for 19 years in the show.
Yeah.
So they're taking discounts. And all those young kids, they're on league minimums. So, they got Murray for, another 4 years? I mean, he's the only, and he will be the only rookie to win 2 Stanley Cups. It just can't happen.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing to be, to say I'm a rookie and I've got 2 Stanley Cups. And people may not understand the reason for that. He came up late enough in the year last year that this was really considered his rookie year this year. But he, of course, won the Cup last year when he came up later. But the question maybe now too, though, you saw both years how the Penguins needed both goalies.
Yeah.
So how is that going to be going forward without Fleury in the mix, which is what it looks like will probably happen. They got Jarry down below, who's probably the best goalie in the A right now. So he's ready to either move up or probably ask to be traded to get his shot. I mean, he's a really solid goalie. So you still have to. And, Fleury has been great for the team. He's an unbelievable teammate, but he's going to go somewhere else. Let's hope we don't see him in a Capitals uniform because
he won that series by himself. There are 3 games that he stood on his head that I even think if Murray was in net, we lose that series.
Yeah.
And he played great in those games.
Yeah, there's the selflessness that you mentioned, between Fleury and Murray and really the team effort toward getting the cup. I mean, that's why teams win championships. You see people that are unselfish and, being able to pull through together for a common cause.
Yeah, and I'm biased to the hockey side, but you don't see a lot of spoiled hockey players. Yeah. You don't see that attitude, because if it does happen, then somebody usually takes care of them in practice where they get a quick attitude adjustment to be on the right page.
Let's talk youth hockey for just a minute that we have left here in Wheeling. You're around that circuit a lot and have kids that play and have been involved with coaching the different high school teams and youth teams. And what can you say about hockey in Wheeling right now?
It's really growing. I mean, we're probably at 500 kids, not including the 4 high school teams that are playing. Kids start 4 years old. There's always been the myth that you're up at 5 in the morning. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. I mean, the earliest we can put a kid that's under 12 on the ice is 8:30 a.m. So those hours and those myths are gone. And there's great programs, and this is one of the places where it is really affordable to play. For something that if you go right to the Pittsburgh market, you're paying $2,000 and $3,000 for, you're paying $250 here. And with the Ogilvy and the Yates Foundation, if you qualify for that, they cover you. So you don't have any out-of-pocket expense to play hockey.
That's great.
And you don't really see that in every other city.
Well, I really appreciate you being here on the show today. Thanks for
coming in.
Appreciate
it, Jim. Thank you.
We need to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue talking a little bit more sports here. Stay with us on the Jamie Bordas Show. We've obtained the record results in almost every field of law.
And other attorneys can't say we've had the largest verdict in this field. We can. We've done these things. We've tried these cases. We've gotten the big results. We've gotten the big verdicts. That sets us apart.
I think that says something to insurance companies. It says something to corporations that this is a firm to be reckoned with.
It's not the size of the verdict that's so important. It's the change that we hope to bring about.
Bordas and Bordas, fighting for justice.
Welcome back to the show. It's time to talk sports, and I want to start off kind of right off of what Tim Roberts and I were speaking about. That's the Penguins. What an accomplishment to win back-to-back Stanley Cups. And I talked, a couple weeks ago on the show about, the Stanley Cup playoffs and the NHL and how, it really is a grind. It's the only sport where you have like that type of physicality where you have to go over that long of a stretch to win 4 series in a physical sport like that. I mean, the NFL, you have to win basically 3 games to win the Super Bowl in the playoffs. You win a couple games in the playoffs, win the Super Bowl, you're the champion. The NBA has those 7-game series, but it's not the same type of physicality where you're banging into each other the same way, knocking people on the boards. Major League Baseball, of course, not really the same type of physicality at all in baseball. So, to be able to do that and do it in consecutive years in a league where parity is now kind of the norm is really something special. And these guys are locked up now for years to come. Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, locked up under long-term contracts, and so it'll be fun to watch and see what they can do. I doubt a three-peat's in the cards. I mean, it's not easy to do, but they've no matter how well you play, you have to deal with injuries, you have to deal with other things, and how long can you maintain focus? How hungry can you be coming back year after year? It'll be tough to do, but I think the Penguins will certainly be in the mix next year. I think it's too early to predict what will happen. We'll see what happens in the offseason, who stays, who goes. So I'm not going to make any predictions now, but they'll certainly be one of the teams in the mix and talked about. But before the playoffs started, I picked the Penguins in 7 over the Anaheim Ducks. That was close. They won in 6 over the Nashville Predators, but we'll take it. The Penguins are back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, so congratulations to the entire franchise. Speaking of professional sports and championships, the Golden State Warriors closed out the Cleveland Cavaliers in 5 games. I did predict the Warriors over the Cavs in 6 before the NBA playoffs started, so I was even closer on that one, but that one's a little easier to pick maybe with the way those teams have gone. But the first ever First time in history that the same teams have faced off 3 years in a row in the NBA Finals. And I found that hard to believe when I first heard it, because I felt like when I was growing up in the 80s that it was the Lakers Celtics every year. But you go back and you look, and you sneak a Houston in, you sneak the Detroit Pistons in toward the end. There was the Sixers got in there at one point. These different teams that would break up that head-to-head matchup every once in a while, but it seemed like the Lakers and Celtics were always battling. But this is the first time ever the same teams 3 years in a row, and they put on another good show. But the Warriors were just too much, and I think that obviously the addition of the Finals MVP Kevin Durant was a huge factor in this series. In the offseason, the Warriors were able to go out and get Kevin Durant. It's easy for everybody to say, well, of course, you go out and get Durant and add him to that team, they're going to be the champs. But what people may forget is that the highest payroll in the league goes to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And people talk about how Curry and Thompson went out and got this help. Well, the Cavs are actually spending more money than the Warriors are. It's just that maybe they don't have the right pieces. So they'll have to make some decisions in terms of who goes, who comes in. LeBron's, I think, only got 1 more year left under his contract, and there's already rumors that he could be headed to either the Lakers or Clippers after next season. But I think it'd be tough for him to do after he came back home to Cleveland. But he won the championship for Cleveland, so I'm not sure it's as much of a factor anymore. But the Warriors, have these guys, under contract. Steph Curry's contract's up, but no hint at all that he'll go somewhere else. But he will get paid now. Believe it or not, he was the 9th highest paid player in the NBA Finals. Steph Curry was. So his salary is certain to skyrocket. But of course, these fellows make so much money nowadays on endorsement deals. Steph Curry has the big deal with Under Armour and others. And that's where a lot of their money comes from, in addition to he was already making a not too shabby $12 million a year anyway, but that's very still low compared to the 20s of millions that some of the other star players are making. So the question now will be, is this going to turn into a dynasty? 2 out of the last 3 years the Warriors have won it. Last year, of course, they had an all-time record of 73 regular season wins, but couldn't close out in the finals when they had the 3-1 lead and Cleveland came back on them. But what's going to happen now? I think this team is going to be set to do great things for several years to come here. Their stars are all in their 20s still. I mean, some of them are about to turn 30, but they've got a number of years left. So I think it's going to be fun to watch, and they're a very unselfish team. They pass the ball around and have a lot of scores and a lot of weapons on that offensive end. So congratulations to them for winning it all. And just to mention the Pirates real quick before we have to go, they're still hanging around, not again below 500, but everybody's teetering right there around 500 or below 500 in the National League Central. And McCutcheon started to catch a little bit fire here. He raised his batting average, 50 points or so in just the last several weeks since he's moved to the 6th spot in the lineup. So we'll continue to keep an eye on them because they are still alive, believe it or not. That's all the time we have this week. I appreciate you joining us again here. We'll see you again next week on the Jamie Bordas Show.